But more than that, you taught us something about ourselves. For 12,000 years, we believed that violence was always wrong, that peaceful beings should never raise their hands in anger. Today we learned that sometimes peace must be defended with force. Sometimes the gentle must learn to fight, so that evil does not triumph through the inaction of good beings. Reed looked around at his crew, seeing the pride in their faces. They had volunteered for what might have been a suicide mission, and instead had found something none of them expected. The discovery that humans were not alone in the galaxy, and that sometimes being the right kind of crazy was exactly what the universe needed. Science Coordinator Vel stepped forward, his bioluminescent patterns now showing colors that Reed had learned meant determination and hope. Captain, the Galactic Council describes humans as dangerous Deathworlders who should be avoided at all costs. After today, I believe they are correct. You are dangerous to those who prey upon the innocent. You are deadly to evil that believes itself unstoppable. The galaxy should indeed fear humans, but for the right reasons. As the human fleet prepared to return home, Reed realized that everything had changed. They had come to help unknown aliens, and instead had made first contact with a species that would become humanity's closest allies. The Zephyrians had called for legendary protectors and found something better. Ordinary people who became extraordinary when someone needed help. The void between stars no longer seemed quite so empty, and humanity no longer traveled alone. The desperate signal, the crystalline spires of the Zephyrian research vessel, Stellar Harmony, gleamed like captured starlight against the cosmic void. For 3 centuries, this magnificent ship had sailed between galaxies, its crew of peaceful scholars dedicated to understanding the mysteries of space and time. The Zephyrians themselves were beings of living crystal, their translucent bodies shifting between shades of blue and silver as emotions flowed through their geometric forms. Chief Scientist Veltar stood in the observation chamber, his faceted form reflecting the swirling colors of a distant nebula. His people had evolved on a world of singing crystals and gentle winds, where conflict was unknown and violence was merely a theoretical concept studied in ancient texts. The Stellar Harmony housed 8,000 Zephyrians, including entire family units of researchers, artists, and philosophers who had volunteered for this grand expedition to map uncharted regions of space. The attack came without warning. Massive, brutish ships emerged from hyperspace like predators sensing vulnerable prey. The Korthak raiders were everything the Zephyrians were not: violent, aggressive, and utterly without mercy. Their vessels were ugly things of black metal and sharp angles, designed to inspire fear rather than wonder. Where Zephyrian technology hummed with harmonious energy, Korthak weapons screamed with destructive power. The first salvo of plasma bolts struck the Stellar Harmony's delicate hull, sending shockwaves through the crystalline corridors. Zephyrians throughout the ship resonated with shared pain as their vessel's living crystal matrix was burned and shattered. Emergency lights bathed everything in harsh red, a color that hurt their light-sensitive vision and made thinking difficult. Subcommander Lisara rushed to Veltar's side, her normally melodic voice cracking with terror. The Korthak ships were demanding surrender, but their intentions were clear from intercepted communications. They would strip the ship of its advanced technology, sell the Zephyrians into slavery, and leave the beautiful Stellar Harmony as nothing more than floating debris. Veltar's mind raced through their limited options. The Zephyrians had defensive shields and some basic point defense systems, but they were researchers, not warriors. Their ship was built for discovery, not battle. Against the Korthak fleet of 12 heavily armed raiders, they had no chance of fighting back. The second wave of attacks targeted the Stellar Harmony's engines. Explosions rocked the ship as delicate propulsion crystals shattered under the assault. Without engines, they were trapped, unable to flee into hyperspace or even maneuver to avoid incoming fire. The raiders were being methodical, disabling rather than destroying, keeping their prize intact for easier looting. Emergency systems began failing one by one. Life support flickered as power conduits were severed by the attacks. The beautiful harmony that had always filled the ship's corridors was replaced by the discordant sounds of alarms and breaking crystal. Zephyrian children huddled with their families, their young minds unable to comprehend the violence being inflicted upon them. With trembling appendages, Veltar activated the ship's emergency beacon. The distress signal was meant to reach the Galactic Peacekeeping Alliance, a coalition of civilized species that maintained order in this region of space. Help should have arrived within hours, bringing diplomatic vessels and lightly armed peacekeepers who could negotiate with the raiders or call for additional support if needed. But space is vast and unpredictable. The signal, racing at light speed toward the nearest Alliance outpost, encountered a gravitational anomaly created by two black holes locked in a deadly dance. The massive gravitational fields caught the transmission and bent it like light through a prism, sending it careening away from its intended destination and into the darkness of unexplored space. The beacon's message was simple but desperate. Research vessel Stellar Harmony under attack, 8,000 civilians in danger, engines destroyed, life support failing. Please send immediate assistance to these coordinates. We are a peaceful people with no weapons. We need help. Hours passed without response. The Korthak raiders continued their methodical dismantling of the ship's defenses, taking their time to ensure maximum salvage value. They had done this many times before, and they knew exactly how long to wait before boarding. Let the prey grow weak and desperate first, then claim the prize with minimal resistance. Veltar watched his people's hope fade as the hours stretched on. Young Zephyrians dimmed their natural luminescence to conserve energy. Scientists who had spent lifetimes studying the wonders of the universe now faced the reality of becoming slaves in Korthak mining colonies. Artists whose crystal songs had brought beauty to countless worlds would be silenced forever. Then the universe answered their call, but not in the way they expected. The distress signal, after traveling through regions of space that no Zephyrian had ever explored, finally reached a civilization that was as different from the peaceful crystal beings as night from day. The transmission arrived at the edge of a yellow star system, third planet from its sun, where a species called humans had recently developed faster-than-light travel and begun exploring their local stellar neighborhood. Admirs. Alsara Chen was reviewing patrol reports aboard the heavy cruiser UES Indomitable when her communications officer detected the alien transmission. The message was fragmented and difficult to translate, but its meaning was unmistakable. Somewhere in the darkness, innocent beings were under attack and calling for help. Chen had spent 25 years in the United Earth Space Navy, rising through the ranks during humanity's expansion into space. She had fought pirates in the asteroid belts, defended colonies from alien raiders, and led the final assault that ended the brutal Centauri Wars. Her face bore the scars of those conflicts, and her eyes held the weight of every decision that had cost lives to save others. The 15th Expeditionary Force under Chen's command consisted of 8 heavy cruisers and their escort vessels, all battle-tested veterans of humanity's bloodiest conflicts. These were not exploration ships or diplomatic vessels, but instruments of war designed to project human military power into the vast darkness of space. Chen studied the alien transmission, noting the fear and desperation in the harmonious tones that somehow managed to convey emotion across the barriers of species and language. Somewhere out there, people were dying while calling for help. The fact that they were aliens rather than humans made no difference to her whatsoever. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast across the fleet. "We have received a distress call from unknown aliens under attack. Prepare for immediate hyperspace jump to these coordinates. This is a rescue mission, but be ready for anything. The attackers may still be in the area." The human fleet's response was immediate and decisive. Within minutes, 8 massive warships and their escorts had plotted courses for the distant coordinates. Weapons were powered up, Marines suited in combat armor, and medical messes prepared for mass casualties. The humans had no idea what they would find when they arrived, but they were ready for war if that's what it took to save innocent lives. Meanwhile, aboard the dying S, the human ships were dark titans of war, their hulls scarred by battle and bristling with weapons that could crack planets. They moved in perfect military formation, their approach calculated and predatory. To the peaceful Zephyrians, who had never seen purpose-built instruments of destruction, The human fleet looked like something from their darkest nightmares. Sub-Commander Lysara's voice shook as she delivered her sensor readings to Veltar. The approaching ships are 3 times the size of our largest vessels, and their energy signatures suggest weapons of unimaginable power. Chief Scientist, I fear our distress call has attracted something far worse than the Korthak. Veltar watched the tactical display with growing horror. The unknown fleet moved with military precision that spoke of countless battles and hard-won experience. These were not peacekeepers or diplomats coming to their aid. These were warriors, and warriors in his experience meant only death and destruction. As the human fleet prepared to drop out of hyperspace, 2 very different species were about to meet for the first time. The Zephyrians saw death approaching in the form of massive warships. The humans saw innocent beings in desperate need of rescue. Neither understood the other, but both were about to discover that the universe was far more complex than they had ever imagined. Warriors become saviors. The space around the dying Zephyrian vessel suddenly erupted in brilliant flashes of twisted light as 8 human warships tore through the fabric of space-time itself. The UES Indomitable led the formation, its massive bulk emerging from hyperspace like some primordial leviathan rising from oceanic depths. Following in precise formation came the other ships of the 15th Expeditionary Force, their dark hulls reflecting the distant starlight as they took defensive positions around the alien vessel. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge, studying the tactical display with the practiced eye of a veteran commander. The alien ship was beautiful in a way that human technology could never match, its crystalline structure catching and refracting light in patterns that seemed almost alive. But the vessel was clearly dying, with massive hull breaches, dead engines, and failing power systems throughout. More concerning were the 12 aggressive-looking ships that had pulled back to a safe distance when the human fleet arrived. Chen's tactical officer quickly identified them as raiders, their energy signatures matching known patterns of weapons fire on the damaged alien vessel. Unknown vessels, Chen broadcast on standard galactic frequencies, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Navy. You will immediately withdraw from this area and cease all hostile actions. The Korthak commander's response came back filled with snarling fury. The brutal raiders had been looking forward to an easy prize, and the sudden appearance of unknown warships had completely disrupted their plans. But they were not cowards, and their ships outnumbered the human fleet. "Human scum," the Korthak leader spat, his words translated by universal communication protocols. "You have no authority here. Withdraw now or face the consequences. This prey belongs to us." Chen's expression hardened. She had dealt with pirates and raiders throughout her career, and she recognized the type immediately. These were predators who preyed on the innocent, and she felt no more sympathy for them than she would for any other dangerous animal. "Negative," she replied, her voice cold as the space between stars. "You attacked a civilian vessel and endangered innocent lives. Withdraw immediately or face the full might of the United Earth Space Navy." While this exchange played out, the situation aboard the Stellar Harmony grew even more desperate. The Zephyrians could monitor both human and Korthak communications, and what they heard filled them with terror. The newcomers seemed to be claiming ownership of their ship, discussing them like property to be fought over. Veltar's worst fears seemed to be coming true. The distress signal had attracted not rescuers, but additional predators who would fight the Korthak for the right to enslave his people. The human ships were clearly more powerful, which meant they would likely win any battle and claim the Zephyrians for themselves. "We must try to communicate with them," whispered Lysara, though her voice carried little hope. "Perhaps if we explain that we are peaceful researchers, they will show mercy." Veltar activated the communication system with trembling appendages. "Unknown warships, this is Chief Scientist Veltar of the research vessel Stellar Harmony. We are peaceful beings who mean no harm to anyone. We have knowledge and technology that might be valuable to you, but please, do not harm our families. Our children have never known violence." The transmission reached the human fleet, and Admiral Chen found herself face to face with her first alien contact. The being on her screen was unlike anything in Earth's database, a crystalline entity whose very form seemed to resonate with harmonic frequencies. Despite the strange appearance, the fear and desperation in the alien's voice was unmistakable. "This is Admiral Chen," she replied, making her voice as gentle as possible while still maintaining command authority. "We received your distress signal and came to help. We're not here to harm you or take your ship. We're here to rescue you from the raiders." But the translation system struggled with the concept of rescue. To the Zephyrians, who had never encountered a Dadia species that would risk their own lives to save strangers, the word rescue came across as something closer to capture or acquire. The peaceful crystal beings could not comprehend the human concept of selfless heroism. Dr. James Park, the fleet's chief medical officer, had been listening to the communications from his position in the medical bay. Unlike the admiral, he had trained in xenobiology and had spent years studying theoretical first contact scenarios. He recognized the signs of a massive cultural misunderstanding. "Admiral," he said over the internal communication system, "I think they're afraid of us. They've never encountered a military response to a rescue situation. To them, we probably look like additional attackers." Chen nodded slowly. She had seen the same fear in human civilians caught in war zones, the way innocents could be just as terrified of their rescuers as their attackers if those rescuers came armed for battle. "Doctor, prepare an away team," she ordered. "Take minimal security and focus on medical personnel. If we can help their wounded, maybe we can prove our intentions." But before the humans could launch their diplomatic mission, the Korthak made the decision for them. The raider commander had grown tired of the negotiations and decided to test the strength of these unknown warships. If the humans were weak, he would destroy them and claim both ships. If they were strong, he could always retreat and find easier prey elsewhere. The Korthak attack came without warning, a coordinated assault by all 12 raider ships. Their weapons were brutal but effective, designed to overwhelm enemy defenses through sheer firepower rather than tactical sophistication. Energy bolts and plasma torpedoes streaked across space toward the human fleet. What happened next would become legendary among both species. The human ships moved like a single organism, their formation shifting and adapting as Admiral Chen's tactical commands flowed through the fleet. Point defense systems intercepted incoming missiles with pinpoint accuracy, while the capital ship's main guns returned fire with devastating precision. The UES Indomitable's forward batteries spoke with voices of thunder, each shot carefully calculated to disable rather than destroy. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. 3 Korthak ships were completely destroyed when their ammunition stores detonated under human fire. 4 more were disabled, their engines and weapon systems surgically removed by precisely aimed shots. The remaining 5 raiders fled into hyperspace, their commander screaming curses and threats as his remaining forces abandoned the battlefield. Throughout the brief but intense battle, the human fleet had maintained protective positions around the stellar harmony, ensuring that no stray shots or debris could harm the already damaged vessel. It was a display of tactical skill and protective instinct that left the Zephyrians stunned. As the last raider ship vanished into hyperspace, Admiral Chen turned her attention back to the aliens. "This is Admiral Chen to the stellar harmony. The raiders have been driven off. We're preparing to send medical and engineering teams to assist with your repairs. Do we have your permission to come aboard?" Veltar stared at his communications display, unable to process what he had just witnessed. The powerful human warships had not only defeated the Korthak raiders, but had done so while protecting the Zephyrian vessel. They were asking permission rather than demanding surrender, and their leader spoke of medical aid and repairs rather than conquest and enslavement. You fought to protect us?" Veltar asked, his voice filled with wonder. "But we are strangers to you." Why would you risk your own ships to save ours?" Chen smiled, though she knew the alien couldn't see her expression. "Because you called for help, and that was enough. We don't leave innocents to die, no matter who they are or where they come from." The next few hours transformed both species' understanding of the universe. Dr. Park's medical teams worked alongside Zephyrian healers to treat the wounded, their different approaches to medicine creating surprising synergies. Human engineers, used to repairing battle damage under harsh conditions, proved remarkably effective at fixing crystalline technology once they understood its harmonic principles. The breakthrough moment came when a young Zephyrian child, injured in the initial attack, took the hand of a human medic and began to sing a healing song. The pure crystalline notes resonated through the ship's corridors, and both species felt something shift in the cosmic order. This was not conquest or subjugation. This was the beginning of something entirely new. As the stellar harmony systems came back online and its people began to heal, Veltar found himself in the ship's observation chamber with Admiral Chen. The human leader stood quietly, watching the stars through the crystal walls, her scarred hands clasped behind her back. "Your people," Veltar said slowly. "They are warriors, but they fight to protect rather than to conquer. This is unprecedented in our experience." Chen turned to face the crystalline being, her expression thoughtful. "Where we come from, protecting others is what makes us human. It's not about what species someone belongs to. It's about doing what's right." The Zephyrian scientist processed this concept, his form shifting through spectrums of blue and silver as he struggled to understand. "There are many species in this galaxy, Admiral Chen. Most avoid each other or engage only in raid. Some, like the Korthak, are predators, but none fight to save strangers. You're humans. You may find that others fear you for this very reason." Chen nodded slowly. "Fear of the unknown is natural, but we'll prove ourselves through our actions, just like we did today. One rescue at a time, one act of kindness at a time." As the human fleet prepared to escort the stellar harmony to the nearest safe port, both species knew they stood at the threshold of a new age. The Zephyrians would return home with tales of warrior protectors from beyond the known galaxy. The humans would carry word of an entire galactic community waiting to be discovered. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other species would soon learn that a new player had entered the cosmic game. The humans had announced their presence not with conquest or trade negotiations, but with an act of selfless heroism that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be strong. The distress call had indeed reached the wrong species, but as the stellar harmony sailed safely through space under human escort, Veltar realized it might have been exactly the right mistake to make.